Today I'm showing you how to go from this to this. To know how to fix it, we first have to know why it happens. As you go down into a squat, your body uses three main joints: your ankles, your knees, and your hips. If you run out of range there, it'll go to the next available spot, which is your lumbar spine or your low back. And that flexing in your lumbar spine is a butt wink. So as you go down, if you run out of room here, you'll flex here to let you go down farther. To fix that butt wink, you first have to make sure you have full range in your ankles, your knees, and your hips. We'll go through all three of those today. I'll tell you how to check to see if they're tight and how to fix them if they are. There's no such thing as one proper way to set up for a squat. Everyone's hip anatomy is different. The way my femur sits in my acetabulum here in the joint might be differently aligned than the way yours does. You need to find what yours is and your comfortable positioning. Sometimes that alone can fix a butt wink. Here's how you find that for yourself. You're gonna lay on your back and pull one knee towards your chest. I want you to go until you feel like your low back starts to push into the table or if it starts to curl up. Because that means you're running out of hip motion and it's going to your lumbar spine. So move it around. I want you to go out and rotate a little bit and see when you can find where it gets closest to you without your lumbar spine kicking in. So that is my proper anatomy alignment. And then I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna do a body squat with this proper alignment and see if that alone fixes things. Now for me, I'm a little bit abducted and a little bit externally rotated, and that feels a lot more comfortable for me because that's my hip anatomy alignment. See if that works for you. If that alone fixes your butt wink, then congrats. You don't have to watch the rest of the video. If it didn't fix it completely, or if it just helped a little bit, that's okay. We're gonna go through each joint now. Starting with the ankle. Your ankle needs to be able to dorsiflex, which means your knee needs to drift over your toes without your heel coming off the ground. Here's an easy way to test it. You're gonna be kneeling close to a wall. Take your hand, place it there like this. Then I want you to put your big toe right up against the hand. It should be about 4 to 5 inches away from the wall. What you do from here is you take your knee and you try to push it to the wall without your heel coming off the ground. If your heel has to come off the ground, that means that you're limited in dorsiflexion. So for me, I am a little bit limited. I'm almost there, but to get there, it slightly has to come off the ground. So I know that my ankles might be what's giving me that butt wink. Before we dive into fixing that, I want to first check the other two joints because there can be more than one reason that you're getting that butt wink. So next is the knees. You go into a kneeling position and you see if you can sit back onto your heels like this. If you can do that pretty comfortably, then your knees are not an issue. If this is hard for you or you feel like it's significantly tight before you get all the way down, then you know that your knee flexion might be something you need to work on. The last piece of this puzzle are the hips. The nice thing is the way you found your hip alignment is one of the ways you can check your hips. That checks your hip flexion. When you go down to a squat, you have to have adequate hip flexion to allow that to happen. But there's more to it than just simple flexion. Your hip also needs rotation, internal, which is this way, and external, which is this way. So if you're checking your hip flexion, again, you're just seeing how close you can get your knee to your chest. If you can get it to a point where the meat of your thigh is stopping it from getting to your chest, then you're A-okay. If it's up here, or if you feel like you have to really arch your low back to get it there, then your hip flexion might be limited. Next would be to check for rotation. For this, you would lay onto your back, bring your hip right up to here, about a 90-degree angle at the hip and at the knee. To check external rotation, rotate your leg in towards you. You want to be able to get upwards of 45 degrees. So if straight like this is 90, and this is 0, that would be 45 degrees. Next, you would want to check internal rotation, which is just the exact opposite. So you would rotate out to the side as far as you can. Ideal number is 45. So now I've found my tight spots. How do I fix it? So this is one that I recommend regardless of which spot you find that's tight. The exercise is about spending time under tension in the positions that you want to eventually get to. I have these weights on the ground. These are ankle weights that give me about an inch off of the ground. I'm going to put my heels on those. So you can use whatever you need. 1 to 2 inches is what I would recommend. You can use like a 5-pound weight if you're at the gym. Doing that is going to help with your dorsiflexion, which is going to help your knees and your hips up the chain. I would also suggest holding a weight out in front of you that displaces your weight forward, which is going to help you get into a deeper squat easier. With my ankles raised a little bit, some weight displaced forward, watch how deep I can get without a butt wink. That's as deep as I'll ever need to go in a squat without a butt wink. So what you would do is you come down here, you'd spend some time like I'm doing, 15 to 20 seconds, and I'm not just sitting here, I'm squeezing some muscles, getting used to this positioning. And then I'd come up out of it. I'd do about 10 reps with that. And then I would see if I could still do it without the weights. So now without the ankle dorsiflexion assistance, I want to see if I can go down, still holding a weight out in front and keeping my lumbar spine from flexing. Same thing here, I would hold this position 15 to 20 seconds, I would come up out of it, and I'd do about 10 reps. That time under tension is what's going to help those joints get used to being in that position in a safe way. Plus, it's a really good warm-up before you get under the bar at the gym. Now we can get a little bit more specific. Ankle dorsiflexion is one of the most stubborn motions in your body to gain, and it takes a while. So if you're at the gym and you want to squat that day, there's nothing wrong with putting something under your heel to allow you to squat without compromising other joints like your lumbar spine. But to start working on it for the long term, I recommend strengthening your dorsiflexors and doing some joint mobilizations, which allows your joint to move like it should. Another thing you can do is to strengthen a muscle in your calf called your soleus. So you have your gastroc, which is that big muscle right there that everyone sees. Your soleus is deeper and it's active when your knees are flexed, so like the bottom of a squat. If that's tight, it's going to limit your dorsiflexion. Strengthening a muscle that's tight can sometimes help relieve it. How you strengthen that is you go into a lunge position like this, your knees bent to about 90 degrees, and you're just doing a calf raise, but you're squeezing your calf as you go up and then down. You would do 10 to 15 on both sides. To strengthen your dorsiflexors, go against a wall and your knees locked. You're raising up, pulling your ankles and your toes towards your face as hard as you can, and then down. So each time you're doing about 3 seconds and I am pushing into it. So I'm not just idly raising up my ankles, I'm pushing into it. You do about 10 to 15 reps, and I promise you if you're doing these right, this is gonna burn on that front side of your shins. Those are your dorsiflexors. We need to get those things fired up and moving. For the joint mobilizations, you need a thick band and you're going to want to take your shoes off. Setup is super important. You have to make sure you get below your tibia. So that big bone on the inner part of your ankle, that's the end of your tibia. You have to be below that, otherwise you're actually doing the exact opposite and you're pulling your tibia back, which is not going to help you at all. So as I get this band set up, I'm getting it below my tibia. Then you get some good tension on the band and you're doing that test like you did on the wall. So you're doing this, going forward and letting the band do the work and pull you back. If you feel like the band isn't getting enough pull, you can gain tension and you can even hold it here and push it down a little bit, and that'll gain tension here. And you can use your body to push you forward. The big thing is not letting your heel come up off the ground. I would do about 10 to 15 of these on each ankle. And then we're gonna retest on the wall to see if it gained what we wanted it to gain. So I'd come back to the wall, I'd set up my foot with the hands length away, and I'd see if I can get my knee to the wall. So that was better for me. I still came up a tiny bit at the end, but it made a noticeable difference from my first time. So that shows me over time, that'll be a good sequence for my ankles. But for the short term, I would put something under my ankles while I squat. Now let's move on to the knees. Put your affected leg up onto a table. You're doing a forward lunge, getting used to your knee being in a deep squatted positioning with the lunge with muscles activated. So you would go as far as you can, pain-free. That's the biggest thing on this. Pain-free, and then push yourself out of it with your leg. Don't push with the opposite leg or push with your hands if you have a wall there. I want you to use this leg to do the work. It's time under tension again. You're getting this leg used to being in a deep flex position. You would do about 15 to 20 reps of that daily and see if it gets better over time. I don't have any knee pain, so I can do this and get all the way down to here and then push myself out of it. But if that's gonna be painful for you, do not do that yet. That's a vulnerable position for your knee joint if it's not prepared to get there. But that's a starting exercise to get you along that path. Lastly, we're moving on to the hips. This is a two-part sequence. First is gaining the motion, two is capitalizing on it and keeping it there. So the first part is a band mobilization for that joint. Similar to what we did at the ankle, we're gonna mobilize the joint to get better rotation and flexion. What you do is you take the band, put your leg inside of it, and get it up in the hip joint as far as you can. Then you're gonna go to a knee, and you're gonna get some really good tension on this band so it's pulling you that way. You take your hands here, press in this way passively, meaning your hands and your arms are doing the work, your legs just going along for the ride. So it's here, and then I'm actively opening up my hip. So I'm trying to squeeze open my hip and the band is assisting me that way. So I do about 15 reps of going in and out, and then I could retest my hip rotation by laying down and going in and out, seeing if that worked. I already had good hip rotation, but even then I'm feeling a little bit more open than I was before after doing that. You could do the same type of thing for hip flexion, only you would set up a little bit differently. You would get it up into the front of your hip joint, just below that big bone that's on the front of your hip. You get some really good tension, and you're basically doing a hinge, flexing your glutes, and letting the band pull you back. So you would do about 10 to 15 reps like that. Then you could retest that as well. So you could lay down and see if that makes your hip flexion feel easier to get to your chest. Now the last step is capitalizing on that. This is what I think is most important. So we're gonna strengthen those new ranges. For the external rotation, we're gonna do clams. So you lay on your side like this, and you're raising up like a clamshell opening up. Your feet stay together, and your torso and pelvis stay very stable. You're not rolling back, and you're rotating up as high as you can, and you push into it like we did on the ankle exercises, trying to get a little bit higher each rep, and then you come down. You would do about 10 reps of that. For the other rotation, it's the exact opposite motion. If you have an object you can place between your knees, go ahead and do that. Like a pillow, for example, or a roller if you have one. I'd put that there, my knees stay together, and I'm rotating up this way instead of the opposite way. I'm trying not to roll forward, but I'm pushing into it each time, trying to get a little bit higher and down. If you don't have a pillow, you can just place your hands here like this and do the same exact exercise. So you would do 10 to 15 of that on both sides. For flexion, you can take a band like this that's a loop band, or just take a longer band and step on it to anchor it down. So as I do this, I'm coming up and pushing into it, but not letting myself arch my low back like this. So I'd be like this, as high as I can, push into it and come down. I do 10 to 15 on each side. Here's what I would suggest you do if you want to squat that day rather than spending 20 minutes on this just to get under the bar and not have a butt wink. I would suggest this warm-up. Hip band mobilizations where you're pressing in and opening up out. Ankle band mobilizations where you're going over it. 10 to 15 reps where you're spending time under tension in a deep position, holding something out here to allow you to get used to that. That will take probably 5 minutes max, and it'll prime your system and get you ready to get under the bar with no butt wink. But okay, that's it. So that's how you fix your butt wink. If you have any questions or if you have other topics you want me to cover, leave it in the comments and I'll answer them.